Well guys, I think you have waited long enough. It's about time I make another bobber video. I kind of want to go all out on this one. I'd like to get rid of all this double wishbone and these extra supports and all this bracketry up here and do a single backbone and then do a true hardtail. I think the plan is still going to be to reuse these. I'm going to remove the swing arm at some point and figure out how to ditch the joint in here because we won't need it anymore. It's going to be standard at one position all the time, being a true hardtail. I'd like to knock out the center post, and I'm undecided whether I'm going to run one solid tube bent straight up to the neck here, or if I'm going to do one piece and then, like in a traditional chopper bobber style, usually they have the end cap welded off and then they have another post coming down. I'm kind of, the thing that's holding me back is the rear cylinder here sits kind of high. So I actually have to cut all this out at least to that center post. And then I can see what angle the bar is going to sit at and then actually step back and take a look and see if I like that or not. But I'm going to start by getting this all cut out. The ignition's in here. It's held in with the stupid, I think they're T40s, but they have a dowel in the center, so you need a special bit for it. But I know if I cut this box out, which I'm not going to need anymore, it'll come out with the ignition and then I can deal with that after. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut that box, remove the ignition. I'm going to cut just behind the engine mount here on both sides. I'm going to cut up top, and then I'm going to cut probably right here somewhere. I think there's enough, actually I shouldn't say think. I know there's enough support because all the engine mounts, the ones that are holding on the frame, there's one here, there's one underneath, there's one up here. They're going to hold the frame in place where I need it to be to get this down tube built. So we'll start there and I'll check back in with you. So if you don't have the right tool, you're kind of left cutting this open. This was the boxed in area, and you'll see some big welds in there. So those got to come off next, or at least get cut out as close as I can so I can at least put some pressure on this to break it off the neck here. And then I can start removing the rest of this. And just like that, we got her cut off. I'm going to probably still knock these studs off, and I'm going to bring these tubes in line with this. I am kind of OCD when it comes to little things like that, even though these tubes are going to be knocked off eventually. Up here, we'll start here. I'm going to leave these tubes on just because they're holding the motor, top motor mount in on the front cylinder. I have an idea for this. What I think I'm going to end up doing is either knocking the stock gusset out or reusing it and making my own motor plate. It's not gonna bolt in through the side. It'll bolt to the top, and then it'll have a plate, like a nice gusset that's gonna attach to the center here, and then along with the down tube, and I'll do a nice design or something in it. That's my plan. Things always change, but it's just so you guys have kind of an idea where we're gonna go from there. I won't bore you with the grinding. I'm gonna get these tidied up, and then we'll do some tube fitting and see what you guys think. Just before I move on here, I was cleaning off the excess welds and remaining metal that was on the neck here, and I wanted just to point out that I was using a 40 grit flapper to bring it down, and I stopped with lots of meat. Like, there's still some height here. You don't want to go, I probably won't even go greater than, let's say, like 140, 150 grit. You'll dig too much into the metal, and I don't know if you can see right here on the side, you start to get some ripple. This is still high, but you wouldn't want to go lower with, like, anything under 150. You'll start to get ripple, you'll take off too much material. I actually prefer, I hit it with 40. I'm gonna hit it with, I think I have 120, but I'd prefer 150. And then I'm actually gonna take the DA and smooth this all out. Same down here. These were the two studs that I believe they hold the bracket for the tank and the seat, I believe is what they were for. But I had a bit of a vision, an idea when I was taking these out. I'm gonna get this pipe cut and I'm gonna get the one side coped just so it sits snug up there. And I'm gonna reflect on what I was thinking about on this, and it might make an easier solution for anybody who doesn't wanna go as far as cutting this out. But stay tuned and I'll get to it. Wasn't thinking, made a mistake here already. I coped this tube straight across. Didn't even think about, you know, the angle of the neck itself. But this kind of helps me figure out some things. It's gonna be tight in here. This is the rear cylinder. And the bright idea I had when I was grinding these studs off might not work now just because of how tight that is. But what I'm gonna do is get that coped at the right angle. This is just a scrap piece I had laying around anyway, so I'll cope that, and then that'll give me a better idea where everything's gonna land in here. This doesn't need a whole whack of room. It didn't on the stock tube either. Actually, I think it had a little less than what's here now. I'd say that's probably about 3/8 of an inch there. The motor goes out the right side of the bike. The frame has 2 points here that come apart, and then the motor comes out that side, and I'm gonna keep that part of the frame the way it is. So I gotta make sure I've got enough room at the top here, like I said, to pull the motor straight out the side there. But when this tube is removed, it actually drops and tips out the side. So you can almost have it resting on there, but just make sure you leave enough room for the actual, you know, shake of the motor when it's running. All right, I got the tube fit up, sitting up there nice. You can see how far it is from down there. And we got about the same amount of gap as it did from the factory. But just kind of standing back, you can see the different angle from there to there. I know the swing arm itself is on a different angle, and I can fix that when I do the hardtail, but I don't like this change up. So it's got me thinking about actually raising the neck, and that's gonna create, I'm not gonna say a whole bunch of problems. It's just obviously gonna make this job not as easy. Looking at the down tubes here, I think I've got a plan. I'm gonna knock this off. It's no longer needed. I don't know if you can see it. So the frame does bow in very, very slightly on this lower section, and then really comes in. There's a little bit of a bend right about here on both sides. They're welded here and here, but I think I can just make nice extensions to go right in here. Let me get a piece of tape and I'll draw what I'm thinking. Okay, what I'm thinking, if I cut it, let's say square in the straight part here, right? I can build an outer, we'll call it like it won't be a slug. It'll essentially do the same thing, but I'm actually gonna go thicker tube on the outside. So cut it straight across on both sides. And then imagine this is the outer tube. So this will sleeve into a bigger piece of tube, and just do, I don't know, from the side, let's say it kind of looks like that. And then I can do either the same design on the bottom, or I can go straight across the bottom, and then hole hole, and then do the same on the inside of the frame. And then that way you have an easy extension to get these tubes high enough that this bar looks better. I can also put nice spot welds in here, and then I can also weld this seam all the way around really nicely, both top and bottom. And this is pretty thick wall stuff. I'd be using, this is 1.25 inch, probably 120 wall. I'd be using, I guess it'd be 1.5 inch 120 wall in order to fit over this snug. But I think that might be the game plan. And that way it'll give me the height. It'll add some design to the frame. It'll fix the issue with the backbone. Worst case scenario, it doesn't work out. I can cut these off and make new down tubes, but I think I'm gonna try this. This is the definitely the cost effective, but yet still very safe in my opinion. All right, I'm gonna cut some of these out and see what happens. Okay, super happy with how that looks. These aren't the finished products, and by no means is this squared or level. It's just eyeballed, but actually it's almost dead nuts. I'd say that's pretty good. It was about 3 inches of gap in here, and that's what I needed to, I had a string tied up here, I took it down. There was a string tied up here down there. That's what I needed to get it level, I believe. So this is just tube I had sitting over here in my scrap bin. It was beveled from other stuff. I actually kind of dig the flat look on top with like more of a beveled edge on the bottom. Or I can do it on either side. I'll just coat the piece of bar I'm gonna put in here, coat it on both sides, and then I can make it pointy or round it out. I can play with some different designs, but I really like this. It actually turned out way better than I thought it was gonna, and it's really not too difficult to do. So this is 1.5 inch 120 wall DOM, and when you take the paint off the frame, it is a snug fit. It does fit, and this bar will slide up and down, but like you have to force it. I can get it off, which isn't a problem, but just so you know, it is a snug fit if this is something you decide to do. I would drill a hole in the furthest part down on either side just to throw your tack weld or your spot weld, and I do that at the top too. You probably, if you're gonna, depending on the design, you could do 4, but at least 2, and then you'll have tons of meat to throw a nice weld around the top and the bottom of this. I'm gonna TIG weld all this, but I'm gonna cut a new piece for the top here because the piece I had cut before is now a few inches too short and the angle's changed up here. So I'll cut that, and then we'll see where we're at, and I'll probably cut the video there. All right, I am super excited about this. It turned out better than I thought. There is some aligning to do still. This up here is still sitting a little bit higher than the rest of the frame, which is good. It means I can bring the tubes down a little bit. I have to make new, we'll just call them sleeves. I have to touch up the notch or the coat up here just to make sure there's a small hairline gap on the bottom that I can make disappear. Don't mind the tape. I just was lazy and didn't want to get the welder out because I'm cold, and I'm calling this pretty much the end of the video anyway. But some good progress. I'm super happy. This is my most ambitious build yet. This is less of a bobber and more of a chop, but again, I'm super excited. I'm gonna really work between this and the race car. I'm gonna try to get another video up probably by the end of next week, but I'll have hopefully this tacked into place with the new sleeve with the actual finished design on it. And we can put the rear tire and front end on for mock-up just to see where the stance of the bike is. We can tack it in up here. I'll tack it to the stock tube here just to put everything on. And if everything lines up and looks good, I'm gonna cut this center out and make my own center post. But like I said, that's where I'm gonna cut it for here. Thanks for joining, guys. Hopefully you guys are as excited as I am to get this thing going. Man, that looks good. Can't wait. See you guys on the next video.